let's talk about Anji's newfound offense in Fuujin. Coming into Season 2 of Strive, Anji has received some much needed and controversial change amongst fans of the character. While losing some routing options in hard knockdown, Fuujin is new and improved and significantly more threatening. Players that aren't fans of the change might find this a little confusing, but while his reward on Rin is much lower than before, the success rate on landing the button against stronger players is much higher. And once you tally in the other important buffs to Shin being +7 on block, Fuujin having less recovery, Anji now is a solid, consistent, and more stable offensive game plan than ever before in Strive. Now Anji truly is a Rekka character, similar to Chip, able to stagger and alternate his pressure based off their opponent's defensive options and habits. My goal with this video is to provide a base on both how to attack and defend against Fuujin. From my perspective, many Anji players have a linear view on what they should do after Fuujin with follow-ups, which I would refer to a layer 1 pressure, but more on that soon. And not only that, they take really big risks and gambles that they really don't have to take, at least not this yet, and that can be mitigated with resources. That being said, most players defending against Fuujin have a similar problem, thinking that they can simply match or represent one option to get out pressure. This issue has always existed against stronger Anji players even before the patch. If you simply represent one option against Fuujin, you will cease to exist. Welcome to this portion of the guide, essentially on Fuujin. We're going to be here talking about layer 1 and layer 2 approaches for Fuujin, basically what I believe Anji players should be looking for and how they can fight back against defensive options. For the layer 1 approach, basically what I want to do is a quick rundown on all of Anji's options post Fuujin. The basic stuff, a lot of Anji players will know. There's something I do have to say at the end of layer 1 that's very, very important, right? So obviously, basically, what does Anji can do? You can do Nagiha, which is just a pre-dialed low, and you can do Rin, which is a pre-dialed overhead. Right? The importance of this is basically the timings are very close between the two, so it's very hard to respond to normally, and that the Rin is very fast. Not only that, the reward of Rin is a little bit higher because you can get an actual meaty. As shown here, I can get a walk up into a slash button, but preferably we can get walk up close slash. Right? It's a reward that we're looking for to continue our pressure. Right? There are things that Anji can do. Basically, Shin, what was the purpose of this button? Pretty much is a pressure reset. We get +7 at a layer 1 perspective at least. And not only that, because it's +7, this jails jumps, which is fantastic. We love to see it. By jailing jumps, essentially people will have to eat the pressure afterwards unless they just want backdash, but that puts them further into our win condition as Anji, which one of our main win conditions on this current patch is to put people in the corner and put them into the Fuujin blender, essentially. So even if they backdash, while we don't get to keep our pressure per se, we just get reset to neutral, and Anji has good neutral tool. And then the final thing we have here is essentially hop, which I personally think is the worst one. Hop is just basically usually used as a way to mix up your opponent by throwing them, right? And then we can actually get into our beautiful Shitsuoki afterwards. And if you need a little guide on Shitsuoki, I have made one before in the past. Feel free to check it out if you wish. Now, the important thing I want to mention before we move on to basically the layer 2 approach is that what Anji players should be looking for early on in a match after pressing Fuujin. If you are an Anji player that likes to do a lot of Shin and Hop, I think you should reconsider this. Shin and Hop have the problem of being rather slow and also being rather weak to immediate responses your opponent may throw out. While something like Nagiha is significantly safer. At certain ranges like this range, it's very hard to punch for majority of characters, or if spaced perfectly, impossible basically for any character to punch without instant block. This is what you should be kind of doing. If I have to give a little bit of my own personal opinion in this aspect, something I always like to do is I like to do a delayed Nagiha like I just did. This gives me so much information at the start of a game. I basically get to see how my opponent likes to block. Are they fuzzy guarding? Are they doing low high? Are they trying to try a backdash? Are they trying to challenge me? Are they trying to do a reversal? Are they trying to jump? Are they very patient, sit still? Did they attempt to punish me? Was this punch successful, or did they fail? These type of things teach me so much about how much experience the person has in the matchup. Just based off this essentially one interaction, I learned so much about my opponent, and then from there I can actually make an informed opinion of how to play the RPS. Something about Anji is that he is a walking RPS machine in neutral and offense, and that needs to be understood. It's part of what makes him really fun and exciting for me, and also what makes him so unstable. Now let's move on to like the layer 2. The layer 2 approach for Anji goes as followed. Essentially, we have a specific pre-dialed offense tools. Our opponents have different OS's option selects that they can represent. How, as Anji, do we defeat each option select, each defensive option? And this is what I want to run down with. Let's start off with our basic approach, which is Rin and Nagiha. This is what most Anji players are going to represent majority of the time. The thing with Rin and Nagiha, right, is that they're pre-dialed mix-ups like we said earlier. And there's an option select that kind of deals with pre-dialed mix-ups, which is, or high-low, I should say, which is fuzzy guarding. Issue with fuzzy guarding, if the Anji player just delays the Nagiha, the low, by a few frames, the fuzzy guarding no longer works. So what I have right now, it basically is the bot is built to do random high-low. Eventually it'll give me Nagiha. Eventually. If we do delay the low, with this a little bit to match our Nagiha timing, we can potentially blow them up for relying on fuzzy guarding. This will force them to either react to Rin or just simply guess where we're going high or low. There's also something else we can do against fuzzy guarding though. The other aspect we can do against fuzzy guarding is the following. Now watch the bot. A little bit empty Fuujin action. Now this has been enabled with the Fuujin changes, basically with less recovery. We can now actually go into normals a little bit more easily. Something I want everyone to note is that look at Anji's risk that he's building and look how much meter he built. He built about half a bar and he built over 60% risk. Anji works so well with meter because he kind of wanted to spend meter after not doing Nagiha and Rin to confirm into a lot of damage. So this is fantastic. Not only that, but if I'm trying to fuzzy guard a high here and I start walking, I get hit low. Now obviously you could say, well, I could just do the following, right? I could just do Why if I just do delayed Rin there? Now we're in that kind of blender of like them guessing or trying to react to Rin instead of having to rely on auto timings. Now, of course, this has a weakness as well. If I think my opponent's going to delay, essentially we can mash out pressure. Now it isn't foolproof. If someone has really good timing against Nagiha, they should never actually get hit here, right? It should never actually really happen. Maybe on occasion they will get hit by like a very delayed timings, but overall, even if I put this on a slight delay, I shouldn't get hit here very often, right? Occasionally I will get hit, 100%. It's going to happen. The point still stands. While we can use Nagiha and Rin to potentially catch mashing, it's not always going to be very consistent, and it's not necessarily always a great way to deter people. It can be a way of deterring people though, and I think we should use these options as well to deal with fuzzy mashing. However, we can also use a different Fuujin tool to stop fuzzy mashing. The other Fuujin tool we can use to stop fuzzy mashing is the following. We can actually use Shin to stop fuzzy mashing. Now, once again, what needs to be understood about any sort of fuzzy OS is that everything is basically delayed. This fuzzy is just essentially a delay on an option. So when I say fuzzy mash, I'm doing a delayed mash. I'm pressing the button delayed on purpose because I'm trying to stop them from doing a particular option. I'm not reacting to what's on screen. I'm just picking an option. Now, Anji has a way of defeating fuzzy guarding and fuzzy mashing. Of course, our opponent has a new defensive option they can pick from. If you're fighting strong opponents, they will jump out of it. That's kind of something they'll attempt to do. And not only that, but if they have very good timing, they'll be able to hit you out of it. And with practice, obviously you can get like a very strong combo of some sort to kind of blow the Anji player apart for constantly using Shin. Now, fuzzy jump forward is a strong option. Basically, once again, we're doing a delayed jump forward to try to beat Shin, the fan toss. This, as I said earlier, I'm sure you have picked up a trend by this point. Fuzzy jump forward is actually probably one of the best options, if I'm going to be honest, against Anji's defense. Pretty good against the delayed Rin, and against regular Rin, we are able to kind of block it in mid-air, potentially even just framing it if you have very good timing, right? On Nagiha, sometimes you can delay your Nagiha to catch the actual jump frames, but none of these are particularly super consistent, but there are options you can do to stop people from jumping on you constantly. Another thing that you can do, which is beautiful, and especially in this patch, is that you could just do Fuujin into nothing and then pick an anti-air of your choice. I pick air throw in the recording just because it's nice and fancy, but you can do Ko, you can do 5P, you can do 6P. Now, as the Anji player, we now understand the basic RPS scenarios that occur. Against fuzzy guarding, we know what we can do. We can basically force our opponent to guess between high or low very consistently. If they still are fuzzy guarding very frequently, we can just start cheating our turn to build risk. If they start mashing on us, we can frame trap them with our Nagiha or Rin, right? We can kind of do a little bit of this, or we can go back to doing a little bit of Shin instead to basically continue to apply that pressure, right? And if we catch their mash, we get full combo into 2S Nagiha. We can also just do 2D because there's also another 10 framer. And if they're very far away and they're crouching, we can do far slash and that will also connect. And if they like to jump a lot, once again, we can try to catch them with Nagiha, or we can potentially just anti-air them by just doing Fuujin, nothing, and going from there. These are all very strong tools. And we have ways to defeat every OS. But none of these are foolproof, essentially. It's what I'm trying to get down. Every option can be defeated, but each defeated option leads into a new avenue. Anji is just a walking RPS machine. He just wants to play rock, paper, scissors with you all day. And you take these little milestones and come out big. That's the goal. By building meter, we can eventually make people explode. Now you may say, well, I haven't mentioned hop, because hop sucks. There is still a use for it. Is that if you do hop, you can potentially bait a person's throw by your air dashing back, back dashing, jumping, neutral jumping, basically. The purpose of this is really simple. You're just trying to bait the throw and then punish them for actually trying to throw and or tech or punish you. This creates a really silly RPS situation, but I don't necessarily would recommend it. This is start leading towards layer 3 stuff. So something else I wanted to actually mention real quick actually was the post Fuujin options on block. So specifically though, we're talking about Nagiha and Shin. I want to run down through Nagiha first. So first off, what a lot of people I feel like what they do is they do block strain, they do Nagiha, and then it's block, right? They backdash, maybe they get the backdash chase, stuff like that. This is pretty normal because you're -7, so you can't really do a lot. Pressing after Nagiha on -7 can be really dangerous because, well, once again, unless you have a very particular read, like they're gonna run up through you, you can press 5k and you'll be just fine. That being said, I'm gonna show you something. What I have right now is I have the bot set to do the following. Right? It presses far slash right afterwards. This looks very dangerous. However, if my opponent FDs, I'm gonna FD him out. Look how far away I am. And then now I'm going to challenge. -7 from a far distance doesn't mean a whole lot. It means you can RPS with him. What I would like to do is sometimes I challenge with a button like 5k far slash. I will jump forward to try catching an air movement. I will jump air dash back. I will back dash. I will block. I will dash block at people. Because -7 doesn't mean a whole lot. You should try to RPS with people and change up your options. This is very important to do because FDing Anji outside of stopping any sort of risk is not a very good defensive option. You just allow Anji to RPS better and make it harder for Anji to be punished after doing a spaced out Nagiha. The next thing I want to talk about is actually what you do on post Shin. So obviously what a lot of Anji players will do, and as I mentioned earlier, is do 2S. If you're not FD'd out onto your buttons, you're in 2S range, and there's nothing really your opponent can do outside of backdash, right? If they try to do 6P, they will die, essentially, right? Because 2S will counter hit them. At a little bit far distances, let's say you're on here, you may need a 6P, or you can just dash block, you can dash 2K, you can dash 2S, and like that. And then your opponent might try to challenge you, but once again, it's rather suicidal because of the options Anji has and how incredibly plus he is. Now, but when your opponent likes to backdash a lot, well, I have a trick. The beauty about backdashing Shin is that you're incredibly plus if they ever do that. The average backdash in this game is about 20 frames, and you're +7. So if they backdash on Shin afterwards, you're actually like +27. And if you do a half charge Fuujin, it will catch backdashes extremely easily. And if you do a half charge Fuujin and they are able to block, well, they're back in the Fuujin mix like they didn't want to be in the first place. It's an incredible tool to actually catch backdash. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of counterplay to this. If your opponent thinks you're going to do this, they could fudgy jump out of this, so it's not foolproof. They can do something even more suicidal. They can run up through you. It's not foolproof, but this is the game you can play with people if you want to. You can force RPS situations as Anji. It's what he's good at. And something I actually kind of want to mention is Kara Fuujin stuff. The Kara Fuujin is a very weird mechanic, right? Most of this stuff off Kara Fuujin isn't actually super useful because Kara Hop has the issue of being exposed for so many frames. Kara Rin is rather slow, yeah. So how would I use Kara Fuujin? How do I use Kara Fuujin? The answer is it's really just a cheesy mechanic and shouldn't be used very often, but here are a couple little things that you could do off Kara Fuujin if you really want to use it, right? Something I do actually use from time to time is the idea of doing close slash into Kara Shin. The reason for this is because it catches throw techs, essentially. If you are a person that likes to do stuff like close slash into throw, like delays, this could be a good way to throw off your opponent. Personally, I like to do close slash delay 2S, but on occasion, if my opponent's a little sappy about it, right, using like option selects and stuff like that, I will use this to throw them off, basically do a small little pressure reset, and I'm also in close touch range afterwards. The last thing I'll mention, really, I understand this, is that this is basically just a bunch of RPS, right? And it's really hard to absorb, but this rock, paper, scissors, this is just the game plan that Anji has, and this is a game plan you're going to have to get used to if you want to play Anji. If Fuujin is used well, your opponent can't fully react to everything to beat your follow-ups, even if they are pre-dialed choices, right? They will have to commit to an option at some point to deal with your pressure if you're using your options well. Your goal as Anji largely is to mitigate any sort of risks that you're taking, but keep your opponents on your toes. You don't want to go wild and insane like a lot of Anji players perceive they should be played. You want to kind of take measured approaches and make them guess. Frustrate them into making wrong decisions and attempt to capitalize. I hope this was easy to follow, and I hope I created some sort of base for players to follow as well. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about Fuujin? What do you think about the offense? Let me know. Comment, like, subscribe, you know, the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time. This has been Bit Ahead. Peace.